Are you serious about your health and fitness, but overwhelmed by the conflicting information and BS all over social media? Welcome to Fit Facts. Brought to you by Brandon Pascual and Gabe Erno. With a combined 10 years of training experience, this physical therapist and personal trainer duo bring you the most up-to-date and applicable fitness and lifestyle tips based on the most cutting-edge research, bridged with field experience of what actually works and is sustainable for the long term. Enjoy. Welcome to Fit Facts. My name is Gabe.
I'm Brandon.
And today we have an awesome episode. We have a special guest. But before we get into that, I just want to take the time to acknowledge two things. First of all, shout out to Henish of Cal Home Co. for letting us use this awesome space. And also, Brandon, this is also an intervention today. You're already 2 Celsius deep.
Well, 1.5.
And I think it's going to end up being like 4 or 5. So
Exactly 4 or 5.
No, dude, I'm just saying. You said you had a gram a day of caffeine sometimes, right?
Not recently.
No, what's your most?
My most normally is 300 to 500 milligrams.
Okay,
So
mine's 600 to 800.
600. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Not too bad.
You're good for now. You're good for
It's
now.
all about tolerance.
I'm like 40, 50.
Also, yeah, the FDA lies to you.
The FDA lies
I'm just kidding.
But anyway, we have a special guest today. His name is Jacob Turk. He's an awesome trainer. We work with him at the same facility. And today we're going to dive into kind of what your business looks like, talk a little about some of the novel viewpoints and ideas you brought forth, because we were definitely talking about, like, you know, me and Brandon, we're a little older now. We're in our late 20s. We're becoming
Almost
out of
30.
touch. Yeah, dude.
Almost 30.
You're still in your early 20s, so you have your finger on the pulse a little more. And one thing you mentioned to me, we were talking about how social media obviously is becoming increasingly more and more relevant, especially with fitness.
Yeah.
So how have you really seen that, like with your clients that you work with and just, you know, people during your college experience?
Yeah.
How have you seen kind of how that impacts fitness?
Yeah, so I'm recently graduated from San Diego State, and within college and just in general of being a Generation Z, I see a lot of more social media influencing our generation. Like a lot of the influencers out on social media, they kind of increase the habits of our youth and increase eating habits. It changes our like workout routines via social media, like TikToks, Instagram Reels.
100%. Yeah, and you'll definitely see like even certain trends in the gym. Like I know right now, Sam Sulik, have you seen him on social media?
Very big Rudo.
So he's getting huge, and now there's a lot of people imitating his training style.
Exactly.
So like, what are some other examples that you can think of just maybe like trends in like diet or fitness that you've kind of seen start to pop off?
I'd say with diet, there's a big increase in binging almost towards the end of the night, because there's this apparent protein goal that you need to hit. So towards the end of the day, they'll be chugging these Fairlights, anything with like high protein numbers, and that obviously messes up digestion, messes up your eating patterns, and just your overall mental state at the end of the day. Besides that, though, with training, there's a lot of overtraining that's very apparent in college gyms. Not a lot of recovery techniques incorporated, because online in these influencer states, you kind of see these guys grow and then they don't really show the need for recovery or rest.
100%. And there's, I guess, a lot of those influencers, maybe they're on performance enhancing drugs, or they've been training for a long time, or both.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people, maybe they just have been working out for like 3 to 6 months.
Exactly.
They see these influencers
100%.
try to mimic their routine.
Yeah.
And then, like, I'm sure you probably see a lot of people get injured or just make subpar results as a result of that, right?
Yeah, 100%. Overtraining definitely leads to injury. Not a lot of rest leads to injury. And while you're in college, there's definitely late nights, early mornings due to studying or extracurricular activities. So less sleep on your body, that definitely increases your chance to get injured, I would say.
Totally. So are there, like, what do you do with your clients? Like, a lot of your clients obviously are in college or at college age,
100%.
and they're not going to 100% change their lifestyle. Like, they still want to have that college experience, but at the same time, they're trying to optimize their progress. What's some of the advice that you give to them to kind of allow them to do that? Yeah,
I definitely try to preach balance in life. So as long as you're able to like feel comfortable when you're doing your own activities, feel at a almost peace of mind when you're going out, when you're in the gym, as long as you're not try to compacting too many things in one day, maybe that means lowering your workout split, doing only 3 days a week rather than 5 days a week, like someone who's really trying to make progress can. Just because you are doing other things with your life in college, you're rather busy, you're rather excited into the future of life, I guess.
Totally. Brandon, what are some things you feel like you've seen on social media?
Well, actually, it's funny because I had a new patient with back pain, 16-year-old, and then he got back pain from working out, as in like he was just because I asked him, where do you get your workout program, where do you get your workout ideas? And he told me I spoke to his mom. His mom told me, oh yeah, he's new to working out. He just started working out like in the summer. He said that he just copies what he sees people doing on TikTok and like Instagram.
Exactly.
And then when I asked him, like, oh yeah, what's your exercise routine? And then he straight up gave me his phone. Hopefully he's not watching this. Oh, he's done on Instagram. He straight up gave me his phone. He has like a saved library on his Instagram and TikTok of like, oh, this is what I do for chest, and this is what I do for like arms. So he does like pretty much like a 5-day split of like, you know, individual body parts. But his warm up is literally just like going all out the first one, because he follows this one influencer where he's like, all right, on the warm up, you want to make sure you're doing like high reps and pretty much go until failure or something like that. And I'm like, okay, that might work for maybe some like more intermediate people, but not like a beginner like this guy.
Exactly.
Yeah, this guy's like shouldn't be even lifting like that because his mechanics were off when I assessed him.
Interesting.
Yeah, so and then when I showed him like a bunch of like mobility stuff, he's like, oh, I didn't even know this was a thing. So it's so crazy, like what you mentioned, how a lot of like the younger generation, the way they see fitness, it's more of like whoever they inspire to be like on social media. It's like, oh, this guy has like a 6-pack. I'm gonna follow whatever this guy does.
Yeah. And speaking of like the 6-pack, you know, obviously there's a lot of different niches in the fitness community. So there's like the functional fitness. There's, you know, the runners are probably out there. I don't follow them. And then there's like the aesthetics community is a big community that is really, you know, it's been bubbling for a long time. But like with people like Chris Bumstead, like the new Mr. Olympia, he has like, how many followers? I think he has like 100+ million followers on Instagram.
It's crazy.
So like these people are becoming big role models. Have you seen, as a result of that, any positive like habits coming out of social media with people picking up that lifestyle?
I would say somewhat. In social media, they kind of portray the aesthetics a lot, which relates to kind of being fit. Like the more aesthetic you are, the more fit you are to kind of the public eye. But that doesn't really relate to like nutritional benefits and things like that. But I believe that the aesthetics community is uprising for a reason because of these influencers, but it also needs to kind of focus more on the functional aspect of life. Like, as he said, mobility is definitely getting rejected with more uprise and hypertrophy workouts and stuff like that. But yeah,
it's interesting because I think like a lot of people, they see that and they don't understand that maybe, you know, these people on social media are like the best of the best.
Exactly.
A lot of us can't look like that even if we do everything correctly. But on top of that, they're not even doing everything correctly in the first place. So like I think a lot of people, when they just dial in, like you said, balance, and they have like good exercise habits, good eating habits, they can be very happy and very satisfied with what they achieve, even if it's not like, you know, a Mr. Olympia status. Have you noticed that with any of your clients? Like coming in, maybe they have these certain expectations, maybe they're not the most realistic, but then when they do achieve some progress, like have you seen kind of the shift where they're like, oh, I am pretty happy with what's happening?
Yeah, 100%. I have this one client who's a junior in SDSU, and he really wanted to make himself basically as most aesthetically pleasing as possible by this upcoming summer. And with that being said, his main goal was to lose weight and increase muscle mass, and that's very challenging to do both at once. So what we did was we started with compound strength training, and then we progressed into more hypertrophy, and that's basically just to try to preserve his joints and muscles, because as we tried to PR on certain things, he also felt this heavy fatigue coming in because he's in a caloric deficit. So from there on out, we're focusing more on his functionality through fitness rather than just gaining strength. So definitely got to find your balance again, I would say.
Yeah, you can't do everything at once. Like you said, if you're in a severe calorie deficit, it's going to be a lot more exhausting and fatiguing if you're trying to build immense amounts of strength. So that's smart how you shifted kind of. Also, you know, we're seeing lots of different like trends and like a lot of supplements promoted out there. Pre-workout culture is a huge thing.
Exactly.
Brandon right now is full gram.
It's funny, I don't take pre-workout though.
Yeah. All right, dude.
Caffeine's already in my blood.
Oh yeah, you're just 100% caffeine already. But yeah, like, you know, there's a lot of people abusing supplements. What have you noticed with that, like in the younger generation, the college crowd?
Yeah, so I definitely think that supplements are they're guided towards that idea of caffeine, and wrongly so, because I believe supplements for weight training should be more like focused on the other mental aspects of it, like alpha GPC. L-citrulline helps a lot with your blood circulation. Beta-alanine helps. But straight caffeine, it definitely stimulates your mind. But besides that, it doesn't do many actual benefits for your body during the workout. So I think that the promotion of these health supplements kind of is guided in the wrong direction right now. A lot of these pre-workouts, as he was saying, have really high caffeine and stimulant amounts, but the other aspects of it are kind of getting neglected.
Yeah, and even if with the benefits that caffeine does have, it's kind of crazy that some of these pre-workouts and supplements, they're just hinged on like, let's put a fuck ton of caffeine in there, let's throw some other shit in there, but a lot of times they're not even using the efficacious doses. So like for beta-alanine, a super effective supplement, I forget what it is, I think it's like 3.5 or is it 5 grams?
It's 3 to 5 grams is
but then they'll have like this supplement where they just put like 2 grams in. Exactly. So it's not even doing anything because you haven't hit the threshold yet, but they get to say on the box, we put beta-alanine in it, and you feel cracked out from like the 400 milligrams of caffeine. So you assume that you're getting a good product.
It's like the supplement market has changed, especially today, compared to when I started working out back in like 2010, to where because before caffeine, 130 or 140 was like, oh shit, that's a lot of caffeine. But now people are jacking it up all the way to like 400 or even 470. I saw a pre-workout was like 475 the other day, which was insane to me. And it's crazy because now that like social media, we go back to like talking about like this generation right here, social media can like influence the way someone thinks, because what if like we have like that bodybuilder or some influencer saying, oh yeah, I take this pre-workout right here, to like someone who's like 18 years old, and it's like jacked with like 400 milligrams of caffeine. That 18-year-old will literally see that caffeine as like, oh, it's essential for a workout, and then he'll carry that all the way up until his like 30s. That's not what happened to me, but like I can see that happening.
Yeah, I see that with a lot of college students. A lot of college students definitely see those expectations put on by those influencers, and they think it'll translate right after they take that one scoop of caffeine. And then also, a lot of bodybuilders like to emphasize dry scooping, and that is a whole nother topic to talk about, because that's like chugging a whole Celsius.
Let's jump into it.
All at once.
Talk about it.
And
I dry scoop a lot of my supplements, actually.
Yeah, so it's like putting straight caffeine straight to your heart, and it's just going to stimulate you for a long time, and then after that comes a caffeine crash. And the caffeine crash is basically like if you're going up on like a sugar high and then you crash all the way down, and then you're at a flat line, and you can't really get those levels back up for the rest of the day until you get another good 8 hours or like deep REM sleep to restart yourself. So
yeah, definitely using caffeine, it's going to be strategic. Like I don't use it as much as you guys, but sometimes I'll find myself using it more and more, and my doses start going up. I'm at like 40 milligrams, all of a sudden I'm at 100. Now I'm drinking a full Celsius, and I notice when I get to a certain point, if I don't like back off usually and like let myself reset and have like a retolerance, oftentimes I'll find myself like sleeping less and doing all these things where I start to feel more run down and like less recovered. So I think it's definitely wise to be like, use it responsibly, be aware of how you use it.
Yeah, like actually I started, now recently these past weeks, I've been doing a thing where on my first 7 a.m. client, I don't take any caffeine for that. Yeah, just so, I'm pretty sure we mentioned it before, you guys know about it, where it's like, Huberman was saying how you kind of don't want to consume caffeine the first, I think, like 2 or 3 hours upon awakening. And then once I would drink caffeine once it hits like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. and I realized it actually hits me a lot better.
Yeah. It also with the aesthetic movement we're talking about, and like people looking at all these influencers and they're starting to maybe get some, unrealistic perceptions. There's negatives, of course, to this, but there's also a lot of positives. Like we've all experienced a lot of positives, not just from exercise, but even like exercise with the goal of improving your physique. So like for you, what are some things that you've noticed for yourself or your clients where you're like, there's a lot of really good benefits that we shouldn't overlook to like specifically like bodybuilding or training to sculpt a better physique?
Yeah, I definitely think like sculpting physique is one of the top reasons for fitness. Besides that, there's functionality and mobility that you need to accomplish, but by building an aesthetic physique, you kind of have to be fully functional and mobile, because a lot of the exercises you do, you really want that full range of motion, the full squeeze, the full tension on your muscle. And then hand in hand with aesthetics, you have to have really good nutrition. So it forces your mental state to be really tight on nutrition and focus in on your protein intake, your carbs, your fats. And also there's a beauty of trying to cycle carbs and fats on certain performance days. So for me personally, before like a big push day or like a big chest and back day, I'll do a high carb day, and then the day after I'll do like a low carb day. And that's just cycling your basically like metabolism, forcing you to kind of focus in and then use it as fuel for your performance, basically.
Yeah, you're like strategically saying, okay, I want more carbs on this day so I can have better performance.
Exactly.
And you get to really be in tune with your body.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's so cool. Do you ever do that at all, Brandon?
I actually do, yeah.
Yeah?
I do like my heavy chest days on Mondays. And then even on Sundays, well, today I'm supposed to hit legs, heavy legs.
Yeah.
Sometime tonight. So it's usually like my Sunday, Monday, Tuesday are usually like my high carb days.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll have like a rest day on Thursdays. And then Wednesday's usually like an easy, like more core mobility back day kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah, so depending on like what my physique goal is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it sounds like what's your favorite like demographic to work with? It sounds like more like people trying to get into like bodybuilding, or do you have another?
Yeah, I mean, when I first got into personal training, I started at a couple public gyms, and it was very general based. But as I go more into my future goal of physical therapy, I've like found and loved the idea of athletic performance and then aesthetics. Obviously, I got a bodybuilding specialty shortly after I became a personal trainer. And then personally, I am hoping to compete in bodybuilding in summer of 2025, so a whole nother year or so. But yeah, my demographics would definitely be people who enjoy hypertrophy, people who enjoy like full ranges of motion, full like functionality, mobility, and then anyone trying to improve their sports performance, because that's a big step in most people's life, is trying to go from like a collegiate level to a pro level, high school level to collegiate level, just trying to progress your life with the big goal in mind. So
yeah, I love that you're mentioning the full range of motion, because there used to be that old like trope and idea that like bodybuilders are muscle bound and they don't have good mobility.
Yeah.
But like all the research is showing that a full range of motion is superior to a partial range of motion, as far as like, you know, like, and I'm not going to get into the new stuff. If you've seen like the length and partial stuff, that's a side tangent. But anyway, yeah, like a full range of motion with a deep stretch at the bottom, you're going to get so much more benefits versus like you see those people, they're ego lifting, they're half repping, they're using like way more weight, but then their joints are aching, they're not getting as good stimulation. And on top of all that, if you do a full range of motion and you get into like some athletic situation or some situation where you have to like do some movement, you're so much less likely to injure yourself. I'm sure you can speak to that, Brandon. Like people who are in the gym, maybe just like, you know, doing little half reps versus like their body's conditioned to like that full deep range of motion gradually.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. If you have more motion, you have more room to play with. So it's like you have more degrees of freedom.
Yeah.
What I call it. So more range of motion, more degrees of freedom, and you're a lot harder to kill, pretty much.
Yeah, it's more resilient of a person.
Exactly.
that's awesome.
I love it. So one of the things you mentioned, you know, functionality, longevity, mobility. These are all things, you know, that, you know, exercise incorporates for us. And like additionally to the aesthetic component, like you just feel more confident in yourself, you know, you look better. Like who doesn't want that? For a lot of people, that's the only reason they get into fitness.
Exactly.
Like a lot of college age guys are just like, I want to look better to get girls, whatever. But it can evolve, you know, it can change. So for you personally, not just for like what you like to train your clients, but what are the deeper meanings of why you work out now, in addition to that, like how it just started?
Yeah, deeper meaning for me is obviously the next goal of trying to compete in bodybuilding, and that relates to my business, as I am focused on the hypertrophy type of lifting, the type of lifting that gets the whole entire body in movement. So I would say that it definitely helps by letting myself do the same type of training that I try to preach, like practice what you preach. It's definitely important to like do yourself as you would your client. So like fill your own cup before you fill someone else's.
100%.
Yeah.
I would be not using your services if you were like hobbling around all the time, like, oh, I got a bad back with a cane. And maybe you could still know everything, but it's like you want that person who walks what they preach.
Yeah,
you know?
especially like when you get to know like more like physical therapists. A lot of physical therapists, they're very like academia and evidence based, where it's like, oh, it's all about the evidence. But then you look at them and it's like, I mean, I don't want to be rude, but it's like, it looks like they haven't really picked up weight in their life, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like they really prioritize more of like what's actually more functional, what the evidence is, versus like what's actually practical, and are you actually implementing that in your own healthy lifestyle.
Well, I would say what you do, so that I would call that more like science-based, because I was reading actually in the certification I'm doing right now, and they're like evidence-based, it takes into account the science, like the studies of course, but then there's also going to be like the anecdotes that you experience as a coach that those aren't in the textbooks, but you just know it's true because you've seen it happen so many times over and over. And there's a third component that I'm forgetting, but the point is like, it's not just all about the studies. The studies are going to represent the average, but a lot of people you train aren't the average. They're going to be outliers on either side of that bell curve. So that's like why I think what we do is so cool. We get to see like the practical applications of all this.
It's the evidence and then what you see anecdotally and what your client sees anecdotally also. It's evidence-based practice approach.
There we go. There we go.
So I definitely believe that like experience kind of teaches you a lot. Like seeing someone, just like with social media nowadays, people follow a lot of people just because they enjoy what they're seeing. Like they enjoy the experience that they're getting put through. So by having a personal trainer or physical therapist who practices what they preach, you can kind of follow by their lead. Like that's the best way to be led, is through a leader who does the same exact function that you want to accomplish. So.
And fitness just makes us all better at whatever we do. Like if you want to be a leader in, I don't know, your career, whatever it is, if you're a fit, healthy, vital person, you're going to be so much more effective. So that's why I just think we all have such cool jobs.
We really do, honestly.
I love it.
We get to help people, and it's like, I mean, nothing wrong with like people like working at a desk, obviously. But it's like, for me, I couldn't do it. Like even for like me as like a business owner, there's some like days where I'm like just sitting at my desk and doing stuff. And I'm like, damn, I can't do this like for my whole life. Like thank God, like I have patients that I can see out on the floor, just like take them through exercises. There's no way I can sit down and just like look at my camera and all that stuff. And going into that, why do you get into personal training?
Oh, I got into personal training because I really discovered the love of growth. So like I started at SDSU as a major in veterinary sciences, so like biology, and I thought I really wanted to see like animals, like help animals grow and stuff like that. But once I kind of went more into the gym side of it, I started like enjoying seeing like my fellow friends like benefit from my advice, or like anyone kind of like see what I do and then like follow lead. So I enjoy like watching people grow, but also helping them grow. And that's the main part of like personal training, is like guiding them through their workouts, teaching them the exercises, teaching them the muscles they're using, because knowledge is power. So like the more knowledge you can give someone, the more power they have in their own life. So I definitely find importance in growth, like human growth.
Oh wow, I didn't know you went from like animal interest into like human interest now. Nice. Honestly, there is a option to be like a dog physical therapist.
Really?
Yeah, there is.
God.
After you go through
You can be a horse chiropractor. That's the thing.
Honestly, dog chiropractors also.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's one thing that's really cool, is like we all get to kind of see our own improvement and then empower other people, and it's a beautiful experience. One thing I want to go back to really quick is you said you want to compete in bodybuilding, and your plan is in 2025. So my question to you is, and I think this is a good lesson for everyone, takes time to gain muscle. How long have you been training so far? And then how long will it have been when you plan to compete?
So for the past 3 years, I've done my own personal like bulks and cuts. Each one has been 6 months at a time, so it takes the whole year. But these obviously aren't the most optimal way. So this upcoming one, I've been bulking for 2 months now, and I'm going to continue for the next 16 months. So it's going to be a year and a half long. And then the cut is going to be very similar to like a real bodybuilder. It'll be a 4-month cut or 16-week cut, and everything is going to be very calculated. So you're going to go down in calories about 100 a week, try to maintain as much muscle mass as possible. But besides that, strength training wise, still sticking to hypertrophy, 8 to 12 reps, and basically push until failure on a couple of the sets per day, just to really tire out those muscles that I really need to, and then help with growth by hitting protein goals and stuff.
So by the time you plan on competing, you will have been lifting almost 5 years.
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, so definitely it takes time to sculpt that physique.
Yeah.
But it's a very rewarding process for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Before we wrap up this episode, though, is there anything else you feel that you want to communicate to the audience? Obviously, we got to let them know, like, you're a personal trainer. If they want a personal trainer, they can find you in San Diego.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so San Diego, just the environment itself, it definitely preaches like aesthetics just by seeing people outside. Like you go to Pacific Beach, you go to Mission Beach, there's just people shirtless in December for no reason at all. Right. So in order to kind of like succeed in your environment, there's definitely reason to like dive into hypertrophy training, dive into aesthetics training, dive into like what you really started personal training for. Because like a lot of people start with the idea of functionality, but then they get that addiction. Once you see results, you really want to keep on with those results. So I find importance in like pushing yourself every day. Don't let yourself like get stagnant by 3 sets of 10 reps. Like continue pushing for 2 sets of 8 to 12. And then on that last set, really just push yourself to a failure. And that's definitely my mentality, is train with progress, train with purpose, and train with me, basically.
Train with Turk.
Train with
Train with
Turk.
Turk.
Woo!
Nice.
I love that. Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you want to train with Turk, his info will be in the bio. If you want to get some PT with Brandon, his info will be in the bio, and I'll be in the bio as well. So thank you so much for checking out this episode. Rate us on iTunes, rate us on Spotify, all that good stuff, and we will see you in the next one.
Peace.
Peace.
Yeah.